Ah, it is a beautiful day in the Garden of Eden, and we've got a couple greenhouse realities going on here. And if you live pretty much anywhere but the tropics, then greenhouses are a pretty important part of a fully sustainable food production system. So we use greenhouses here in the fall, winter, and early spring. We use them in the fall to extend the life of our summer crops. We use them in the winter to actually grow things that we couldn't otherwise grow in the winter time. And then we use them in the spring to start our seeds a month or 2 months before the actual planting would take place. So even if you don't grow in a greenhouse all fall and all winter long, a greenhouse in the spring is really important because you can start your seeds a month or 2 months early. And so when you plant your plants, you've got a plant that's already a month, 2 months big, and you're going to get production in the first month of planting versus having to wait 1 to 3 months. So the most important part about sustainability is not relying upon a blueprint, not relying upon a system or a formula, but actually comprehending how life works. So rather than me tell you the dimensions of this greenhouse and exactly how to build it and how we built it, what I really want to do is focus on the facets of a greenhouse that make a greenhouse work. So, number one, a greenhouse has to allow light to come in. The sun needs to come in. So glass is the best. Next would be plexiglass, and then third would be some sort of a clear plastic. You can get greenhouse plastic that has about a 90 to 95% light percentage rate, which is pretty good. Glass, is more like 98 to 99%. So glass is slightly better, but the plastic works as well. You can't use plastic that's too thick or too white or too colored. It needs to be a transparent plastic on the thinner side. Of course, the thicker it is, the better heat retention there's going to be as well. So it's got to allow light in. Number two, it's got to hold the warmth. So a couple things that need to take place there is that one, you need to have some sort of radiant mass, which is basically a mass that absorbs the heat and then radiates that heat into the greenhouse during the night. Because when you're using a greenhouse, you may have a 70-degree day, but then at night it's 40 degrees or 30 degrees. So you need to have some way for the greenhouse to stay warm. So you could do that with rocks or bricks or some sort of stone. You could have big black trash bags filled with leaves. That's my favorite. Even black pots full of soil will absorb some heat and then radiate that back out. Another option is that you can cover the greenhouse at night. It's not as convenient because you got to cover it every single night, but you could have a much bigger, thicker tarp or blankets or something like that, and you could cover the greenhouse at night so that it doesn't get as cold at night. Another option is that you could use some sort of heat generating resource, and the best, would be like compost, for example. You could actually put active compost inside of your greenhouse, and the compost is creating a lot of heat, and so that heat is then going to emit into the greenhouse, and it's going to keep it warm. Another key factor would be is that greenhouses have to be relatively airtight, because if it's not, once it gets cold at night, that cold air is going to come in, the hot air is going to escape. Now, of course, a greenhouse does have to breathe in order for the plants to survive. But really the best option is to have a greenhouse like this, for example. We've got the flaps open right now. It was a nice sunny day, a nice warm day. So we just pulled the flaps aside. We've just got some little clips here. And once it becomes dark, which is going to be pretty soon, we would just simply take this plastic like this, and then we just clip it on. So what's happening is we're allowing air to get in there during the day when it's warmer, and then at night we're covering it with plastic, we're getting it airtight, and then there's less cold air that's going to come in and less warm air that's going to escape. So all we've got here is just a basic wood frame. We've got it up against the backside of a house, which is a really good option because that house is actually providing a radiant mass. The house will never be as cold as it will be outside here. So the backside of the house will actually keep the inside of the greenhouse from getting too cold. So all we've got really is just a wood frame, and then we've just got plastic, you know, stapled, you know, to the sides. And then it's actually, like I said, it's all removable on the top so that we can, you know, allow air to get in there during the day, and then we can just clamp it down at night. So it's a very basic wood frame. You know, the dimensions, all the specifics of that, to me, they don't really matter. What really matters is the facets of a greenhouse. So you've got to have a protective membrane like glass or plexiglass or plastic that is going to allow light in but to keep cold air out. You've got to have some sort of radiant mass or actively heat generating material, matter, in order to keep the greenhouse warm. And you've got to be able to have it relatively airtight at night. Other than that, you know, it's just a pretty basic thing. My main priority is using free, recycled, abundantly available materials. So all this wood was free, all this plastic was free. So this was perfect, and this works exactly for how I want it to work. Another one factor that is to need to be considered is where you are. You know, we're in Texas, so it's not super cold. We don't need a super badass greenhouse. In certain places, it is very cold, and you would need a lot more radiant mass or a lot more compost to keep it hot. You know, or other factors. So there's all types of greenhouses, and if you were to go on Google, if you were to go on YouTube and you were to start to look at greenhouses, you would find hundreds of different types of greenhouses. They'll give you plans and dimensions and all types of stuff. My main purpose here is to give you the perspective, the consciousness that is the foundation for a proper greenhouse, so that you know the questions to ask, what to look for, so you can build the ideal greenhouse for your specific application. Greenhouse consciousness in the Garden of Eden. This greenhouse, I really love it because it's so easy and it's so simple. All I have here is a piece of plastic that is draped over these big tires here, which are our raised beds, and anchored down at the ground on the other end. So all we've done is we've taken this piece of clear plastic, we have put a bunch of rocks down at the bottom edge, and then we pull the plastic relatively taut, and then we put some bricks down over on this side to hold it here. And we've just got little grow trays right down here all along this edge. So I'm actually going to go ahead and unveil this for you, just so you can see how easy it is. Now we've just got some bamboo stakes here with beer cans on top of them. And what that does is it helps keep the plastic from falling down on top of the grow trays. And then we've just got a bunch of little tiny mini sprout containers, and we've got our little seeds in there. So what happens is during the day when it's really nice out, we pull the plastic back because it's going to get more sun with no plastic. And then when it becomes about 4 or 5 p.m. and the temperature starts dropping, we pull the plastic back, we anchor it down with the bricks or the stones, and it works really fantastically. If we have a day where it's kind of cold, we just leave the plastic pulled up at all times. And having a thermometer is a really great tool to have when you're working with greenhouses. And the main reason why is because you can monitor your temperature. You don't want the temperature to get too hot, but you also don't want it to get too cold. And if you have a proper greenhouse, you actually do have danger of it getting too hot. So this greenhouse, for example, this super fast, super easy, super free, cheap, super just, you know, ridiculously basic greenhouse will get up to 110 plus degrees. And we're not even in the spring yet. We're still at the end of the winter time. So on like a 70 to 80 degree day, which we've already had here, this greenhouse was at 110 degrees, which is 30 degrees hotter than the outside temperature. So the main factors that are going on in this greenhouse that make it work so well is, number one, we've got a mulch layer down on the underneath. We've got these black tires which are on this back side. So this is facing, you know, roughly south, which means this is the north side. So because these tires are all black, they absorb a lot of heat from the sun. And when we cover it with the greenhouse, that heat actually also radiates into the greenhouse. So this is actually a really ideal radiant mass in the back here. And when we pull the plastic over and we put all the rocks, you know, it's not 100% airtight, but it's pretty airtight. So this greenhouse is extremely easy. It's extremely cheap, and for us it's free, and it works. It's not going to work for big tall plants, but for sprouting it works perfectly. So we've just got a bunch of sprout trays in here. We've got some bamboo stakes with beer cans on there to make sure the plastic doesn't crush it. We pull the plastic over, put the rocks, and then if it's a really cold day, we've got a big tarp up in front here that we pull over this plastic, the clear plastic tarp as well, and then that keeps it even warmer. So this has worked perfectly. We pull the plastic back in the day and we just water it with a little, you know, with a little sprinkler. It is important to take into account the watering factor. Most greenhouses have to be watered quite a bit, especially if you're doing sprouting, because in order to do sprouting, you've got to have very moist soil. So you do have to be able to water your greenhouse. And, you know, obviously we can't water the greenhouse with the plastic on, but it's very easy to pull it back, do a little sprinkle, and then push it back again, even when it's cold out. So this works perfectly. You know, it's not pretty, it's not sophisticated, but it's totally sustainable. It's super easy, and it works. Whatever works, whatever works, whatever works. Bless.